to Variants episode number 13 of Brutal Battle. It's been a bit since we've done one of these Variants episodes, and I was actually looking back and I was kind of shocked that we've gotten this far, as in doing this many Variants episodes. So quite interesting. This is going to be broken up into two separate episodes of Variants episodes, because I'm not doing more than two in an episode, as has been the case. So I have 4 different versions of this one beer. The first beer I'm going to try on this episode is the base version of the beer, and then it's a fruited version for the second one. And then for the second episode of this, it's going to be another fruited version, but a different fruit, and then something else that we'll end up getting to when we get to that episode. So this is a 16-ounce can and a 750 milliliter bottle. Starting with the 16-ounce can first, which is the basic beer. That is the Bruery's White Chocolate. Now, the Bruery, reminding you, is out of Placentia, California. Their white chocolate is a bourbon barrel-aged wheat wine ale with cacao nibs and vanilla beans, and it is 14% alcohol. So, like a lot of their barrel-aged stuff, it's up there. All right, and the vintage on this? Oh, it does have a date code on it. Okay, so this is almost 2 years in the can. So let's see how it's tasting. Well, smelling first, obviously. Okay. And how does it look as well? It's very orange looking. I've had this beer before way in the past, but I don't remember how I felt about it. I think I was kind of lukewarm on it, but we'll find out. Yeah, very orange looking. It's got a bit of a kind of haze to it. You know, some decent sized bubbles just kind of hanging out on top. Swirling it up. It's got some legs on the end, or on the sides, because you can tell it is higher ABV. Let's go in for a smell. Wow. Okay, well, it definitely smells boozy off the bat. You definitely get a spirit barrel note in the nose. I get the wheat wine of it. It is quite weedy. It's very sweet. It's got that raisin note on there, but it's also got a nice honey note going along. I smell wood from the bourbon barrel. I smell like a caramel from the bourbon. I smell a vanilla from the bourbon. There is a very, very, very slight chocolatiness from the cacao nibs, but it's only when I take very deep sniffs of it, and it's on the end of those sniffs. Yeah, and I was saying I was getting vanilla from the bourbon before. It's actually probably more from the vanilla beans than the actual bourbon. Although, it may be increased a bit because of the bourbon. Okay, gonna go in and taste this one. It's definitely sweeter than I thought it was going to be, but it is like a honey sweetness. There is a lot of honey type flavor to it. There's a slight bit of that raisiny note. I am getting a bit of an alcohol heat from the bourbon. It does have that kind of like spirit barrel flavor, and I'm getting a good amount of the wood from the bourbon barrel. Yeah, I'm very slightly on the end getting the cacao nibs. I'm very slightly getting the vanilla a little bit before the cacao nibs and the flavor, but they're not super pronounced. Now, maybe it's because it's almost been 2 years in the can for this one, but it's mainly just tasting like a bourbon barrel-aged wheat wine with like the slightest bit of a chocolatey and vanilla-y aspect to it. There's a decent amount of wood character in it. There's a lot of honey sweetness to it. And it's very wheat tasting. It's very wheat wine driven, which makes sense because it is a wheat wine. But, okay, not high on that one. I'm going to do a palate cleanse. Drink some water in between. Okay, now, that said, let's go on to the next one. Now, this is a 750 milliliter bottle. And interestingly enough, the ABV on this one is lower than the base one. And this one is, I think, actually from this might be like 3 years in the bottle. I can't actually find the date code on it because it's usually etched into these bottles, and I just cannot see it with my lighting. Okay, there it is, actually. I do see it. Looks like... Can't see. 20? Okay, so yeah, so this one's almost 3 years in the bottle, actually. All right, and this one is their white chocolate raspberry, ale aged in bourbon barrels with cacao nibs, vanilla beans, and raspberries. So it literally is the white chocolate, but with raspberries added to it. And it's 13.1%, which is almost a full percentage point lower than the white chocolate. All right, crack that open. Ooh, I automatically smelled raspberry. As soon as I cracked that open, it was like raspberry. And it would say raspberry. Yeah, it says raspberries, so it should be the actual fruit in there, not a flavoring. So obviously it looks like a raspberried version of white chocolate. Like it literally has that raspberry red tinge thrown in on the coloration from white chocolate. So it looks nice. It looks more pretty than the white chocolate does. This has less head on it, and the head that's there is more fine bubbles than what the white chocolate is, which is interesting. Still doing the same thing with the legs around the sides of the glass. All right, going in. Smell. Wow. That's a lot of raspberry. It is like vibrant raspberry. It smells a little dirty too. I don't want to say this in a bad way because it smells really good. It does smell like, like nice fruit raspberry, but it also smells a little dirty in the sense of like getting the raspberry seeds in there. So there's like a little bit of like a dirty earthiness at play as well. But it's not detracting from it. It's not a bad thing. It actually smells good in there. It's just very jammy. Like, just think like raspberry jam. It smells very raspberry jam. I am getting some kind of like creamy softness in there that's probably coming from the vanilla. But the raspberry is so strong of a smell, it's hard to get much else. I do get like a little bit of, an alcohol sting in my nostrils because of the higher ABV. And you can smell the wheat aspect of it being a wheat wine. Okay, I mean, that's basically all I can get with the nose. Gonna go in and try this. It's raspberry. It is very raspberry, as I expected on the nose. Yeah. So, the base beer isn't really able to so much stand up to the raspberries, so it really is just like a boozy barrel-aged raspberry beer. I'm getting a little slight bit of the wheat wine flavor to it, but it's very, very faint and it's on the end. I'm trying for the vanilla and the cacao nibs. Wait, there are cacao nibs. Yeah, the cacao nibs. Not getting the cacao nibs. Getting a little bit of vanilla in there. Get a little bourboniness, and there is some woodiness to it, but where there's a lot more woodiness in the straight up white chocolate, there's way less in this because, like I said, that raspberry like really dominates and kind of downplays a lot of the other flavors. But I like this. It's very jammy. If you like boozy raspberries, it actually, honestly, what this reminds me of, what was that name? What was that beer? There was because it's been a long time, so I can't remember what it was. It was by Founders. It was a raspberry. Was it called? Rubius. Yeah. Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca's here, but she's just not on the podcast. So yeah, it tastes a lot like a better, more boozier version of Rubius from Founders, and with a lot more depth of flavor because obviously there's a lot more going on with it. So. Obviously, I like it because I think Rubius is a pretty good beer. This tastes like a better version of Rubius with more alcohol and less sweetness because Rubius can get pretty sweet. So this one's pretty good. For this episode, I'm going to pick the white chocolate raspberry over the white chocolate. I really like what the raspberries are doing in there. Plus, the white chocolate itself is okay. I'm not that impressed with it, to be honest. But then again, maybe it's because it's almost 2 years in the can. So maybe a lot of, the cacao nibs and the vanilla is kind of fallen out. But it is also possible that the raspberries are more dominant in the white chocolate raspberry because of its time in the bottle of about 3 years. So, but it's good. I like it. So that is it for this episode. It's one of the shorter ones. Not going to do, all the stuff at the end, but I just look forward to the other 2 beers to wrap up these variants of white chocolate. I'm very interested in the next one. It should be even more intriguing than this episode because you're not going to have another base white chocolate beer. So anyway, thank you everyone for listening to this. And until next time, keep it brutal.